Just a little bit of a background again on myself. I serve on the town board with the senior councilwoman. My previous, I guess, life, I'm a New York City detective. I worked in Brooklyn North Homicide. I'm also an ex-chief of the Island Park Fire Department. And when I came onto the board in January of 2016, and the opioid epidemic was sort of kind of starting to set sail here in the town of Hempstead and in Nassau County, I thought to myself, you know, in my previous job, my way to combat the opioid epidemic was to put handcuffs on people. I couldn't do that at town board meetings, so I thought, what else? Although sometimes they need it. But I thought to myself, what could I do in order to help the town of Hempstead with this epidemic? I tried to look into what the town was doing, and to be honest with you, we really weren't doing much of anything with regards to opioids and how to help people out. So I was able to apply for a grant, and through the state, able to distribute Narcan kits. So I've been doing this for probably about 18 months now, and I've distributed just over 1,700 kits. So I've been able to touch the lives of 1,700 people all over the town of Hempstead. I started in my district and then kind of expanded it. And most recently, I've joined up with local PTAs. If anybody's here from the PTA, I would like to bring this program to their organization. I'd be happy to do it. We're now also focusing on how to avoid opioid poisonings in our home, which is something that's sort of seen an uptick because young kids get access to medicine cabinets. They take painkillers that could be in our medicine cabinets, and next thing you know, we have children overdosing. So that's sort of why I'm doing this. I think that it's been successful. Like I said, over 1,700 people. I spend probably 3 or 4 hours a week doing this. And I think that it's important. And out of those 1,700 people, if one of them uses it and it saves a life, I think mission accomplished. So that's really why we're doing this. Like the senior councilwoman said, this is very casual. If you have any questions, if you have concerns, if you want to share experiences, just yell it out. You will not leave here as a doctor. You're not leaving here as a nurse, so don't expect that. This is really to give you the basics, how to identify someone that's overdosing, why people overdose, how to administer the Narcan, and how to keep our homes safe from opioid poisoning. So is there anybody here that's taken this class before? Okay. Anybody that's a nurse, doctor, law enforcement? Okay. Do you deal with, or you're in a different?
No, I will have to start dealing with that.
Okay.
Soon, yeah.
So if there's any experiences that you have and you want to jump in and just share it, you're more than welcome. Like I said, it's very casual. So I guess first we're going to start with, we have a couple of latecomers. Come on in, sit down. That's all right. There won't be a test at the end and you didn't miss anything, so you're okay. Has anybody here ever come across someone that was experiencing an overdose? Okay, so,
Yeah.
okay, do you want to just share what they look like or how you identified that they were overdosing?
They're droopy, their eyes are fixed and dilated most times.
Yeah.
Incoherent sometimes or nonverbal.
Right, so what she mentioned was very nonverbal, incoherent, very kind of disillusioned. Some of the things that really give you the ability to identify an opioid overdose is the pinpoint pupils. They're going to be super small, very restricted. You're going to look and they're going to be like a pinpoint. That's one thing. Very often their lips will turn blue. Underneath your eyes will turn blue. If you do not have nail polish on your nails, under your nail beds will turn blue. Your breathing will be extremely shallow. At the very essence of overdosing, the reason really what happens is you have such shallow breathing that you stop breathing. So the breathing will be very, very shallow. And obviously, those are ways to identify someone that's overdosing, but you also have to use the obvious ones. If you come across someone with a needle in their arm, if there's empty pill bottles, if you know the person, you may know that this person is battling some sort of demons and you're saying, you know what, I'm pretty confident that this person is overdosing. All ways to tell that it's an overdose. Now I'm going to move on to the next step. So what is the next step once you've identified this person as being an overdose victim? Well, first and foremost, you want to call 911 because that is paramount. You want to get the 911 system rolling, whether it is the Nassau County Police Department, whether it's the local fire department, wherever you are, you want to get 911 rolling, because even when you save this person, they need to go to the hospital. So that's the next thing that you want to do. You also want to check the person and make sure that they don't have an obstructed airway. Very often when people, and I use this word because they really are, when they're enjoying their drugs, because that's why people do it, it makes them feel good, they enjoy it, it's sort of, you're in a relaxed state. Whether you're sitting on the couch eating popcorn, or you're laying in bed having pretzels, you're chewing gum, you're eating Starburst, whatever's in your mouth when you enter that overdose is still going to be in your mouth. So you want to make sure that this person has an unobstructed airway, because when you give them that shot of Narcan and they do come out of it, you don't want their first breath to be whatever's in their mouth, because now you're going to be dealing with a choking victim instead of someone that's overdosing. So I always tell people that in your Narcan kits, throw a set of rubber gloves in there. It's good to have on anyway, not only for checking that airway, obviously be cognizant of the person chomping down in your fingers, but you could get a good look, give a sweep if you need to, get the obstruction out of there. Also, if you don't know the person, if you aren't sure what this person is overdosed on, leave the gloves on. With everything that's kind of being introduced to our communities today, the fentanyl, it is so very potent that just by the touch, you could become an overdose victim. There was 2 cops probably 2 months ago. They came across a car on the side of the road. Person was in the middle of an overdose. Cop entered the driver's side, cop entered the passenger side. They got the guy out of the car, administered Narcan. Both of the cops then overdosed themselves just by touch. All right, so if you don't know what the person has become high on, you might want to leave those gloves on. So it's always good to have a set of gloves in your kit. So you've identified that the person has overdosed. You're now planning on administering Narcan. You've dialed 911, 911 system's in play. We'd like to put the person, what we call in a safety position, recovery position, on their side. God forbid you have to step away from the person for a few minutes. You have to go answer the door for EMS. You have to wave down the ambulance. You have to answer a phone call. There's a lot of things that can pop up when you're in a bad situation like this. You don't want the person to come out of this, start vomiting, and be on their back and choke. So you want to put them on their side. Once you get them on their side, you've activated the 911 system. You decided, I'm going to take my Narcan kit and I'm going to administer Narcan. So at this point, if everybody could open up their box. Everybody should have 2 packages in their box, correct? 2 of these wrapped up. Yeah, everybody's got it? Okay. Totally your call how you want to carry it around. Me personally, I like to take it out of those individual packages. It's just easier to give you sort of the evolution of Narcan. And again, Narcan is a name brand. It's a brand of a manufacturer that creates this drug. I just say Narcan because that's how a majority of Americans know it. So to call it by its real name really doesn't make sense. So the Narcan, I always like to take it out of the package. And just to give you sort of, again, an evolution of Narcan, it started as a needle. It was inserted through large muscle mass, through clothes, and as this epidemic started to expand, we've realized, and the manufacturer realized, there's no way you could start giving needles to everybody who was experiencing overdoses. So they then changed it to a syringe-type administration, which went through your nasal passages. And prior to probably 6 months ago, this class was basically how to put together the Narcan, and now you don't have to do that anymore because it's all in one piece. So it really cuts down on my job, and it cuts down on the class so you can get outside a lot quicker. But the reason why it's now changed into this one unit, is because people were complaining, and not in a bad way, but just saying, you know what, I went to administer Narcan, I followed all the steps I learned in class, and unfortunately I was nervous. My hands were sweating, and I couldn't put it together, and I was very nervous, I couldn't get it together. So the manufacturer decided to make this into one piece. So this is it, and this is as simple as it gets. There's not much to this. You'll see this piece right here is the actual dosage of Narcan. Those of you who have previously been trained in Narcan, you probably got the one that you had to put together. In that, there was 2 milligrams of Narcan. Each one of these now has 4 milligrams. So in these boxes and in the kits that you're getting double the dosage of what you would have gotten 6 months ago. Now there's 2 reasons for that. One, oh no, you don't take it off, you leave it just like that. Mine's a trainer, so yeah, no, don't take it apart. There's 2 reasons as to why they increased the dosage. One is the obvious. People weren't responding to the lower dosage because of the drugs that are coming into our community. And the second is that they were able to make it into a unit like this, so they figured, why not? It's better off to have more than less. Now, with that being said, if someone is not overdosing and you administer Narcan, there is not going to be any effect on them. Okay, so don't ever concern yourself with, I'm not sure if this person is overdosing, should I or should I not give them Narcan? I have never heard, and I do a lot of research, I talk to a lot of hospitals, a lot of doctors, the fire service, the police department. I have never heard of someone responding negatively to Narcan. Not an allergic reaction, nothing. So when in doubt, give them the Narcan. Okay, you're a nurse, have you ever heard of anyone?
No.
No, as of now, it's non-existent. So take the chances and give them the Narcan. When you actually administer the Narcan, okay, you're going to take this contraption, you're going to place it in the individual's nostril. All right, you're going to push from the bottom here. Don't do it now because that's it. You'll use your dosage. But you're going to push from the bottom, and it comes out just like a nasal spray. Okay, it's a one-shot deal. You can't try to do half. It's once you push, it's over. That'll enter into their nasal passage. The next big question is, well, how long do I have to wait? It depends. Depends on the person. Depends on how much drugs. Depends on their medical history. Depends on how long they've been in this position for. I like to give it between 1 minute and 15 seconds and 1.5 minutes. Remember, if you can, to try to keep count in your head. Look at a watch, look at a clock, count it out loud, because we all know when we're in a tough situation, something that's very stressful, 5 seconds seems like 3 hours. So you don't want to rush this. Give it its time to work. When you hit around the 1 minute and 10 seconds portion and you don't see anything happen, by all means, take out the second one. You could use the other nostril, use the same nostril, whatever makes you happy at that point, and give the second dosage. Wherever this person is, you have to realize that they are overdosing because they were taking a drug that makes them feel good. So when you are taking that high away from them, to be very frank, they are going to be extremely pissed off at you. Okay? So wherever this person is, if they're in bed, if they are laying on the couch, if there's something around them that's heavy, a lamp, something that's around that could hurt you, you want to try to move that stuff out of the way. Because when this person comes out of this overdose, not everybody, but they could be very upset with you. So you want to try to move that out of the way. You administer the Narcan, hopefully it works. Once it does work, at that point, we'd all assume that 911 is there and they will start working on the person. One of the things that I try to stress that is most important about this class is making sure that this individual goes to the hospital, okay? One of the downfalls of Narcan and making it readily available to so many people is that people take advantage of it. And they think that they can handle their own problems kind of self-contained in their house. And they administer Narcan, and they just hope the person kind of, you know, sleeps it off, and they move on to the next situation. And I get it. I come from a small community in Island Park, where it's one of those places where, you know, you walk down the street picking your nose and the whole village knows what you did, okay? So I know that we all live in places like that, especially with the social media that all these community pages. You know, you have an ambulance and cop cars pull up in front of your house, and you're the main attraction on the local Facebook page. Nobody wants that. But it's important. You have to call 911, you have to activate the 911 system, and this person has to go to the hospital. Most often, the Narcan, what it does is it basically cuts the receptors off in the brain and blocks the overdose. It will eventually wear off, and very often, the drugs will outlive the Narcan. So I've seen 2 instances that I share in all my classes. One was when I was working in Brooklyn. There was a young man who had issues with opioids. It was heroin. And his mother was, you know, went to classes like this, got Narcan. Anytime the kid had an issue, she would administer the Narcan, you know, and hope for the best. So one day she administers the Narcan, the kid is overdosed, she administers the Narcan, he wakes up, and she says, you know, why don't you go take a cold shower, kind of get it out of your system. Goes and takes a cold shower, sits down in the bath, and drowns because he re-overdosed. I've also seen locally, responding to calls in the fire department where people are administered Narcan, and what's sort of the remedy for so many things? Go take a nap. They go lay down, they take a nap, go sleep it off, and they sleep it off because they never wake up again. Because while they're sleeping, they re-overdose, and the Narcan wears off, and now they're dead. So I can't stress how important it is to make sure that people go to the hospital, because once they get to the hospital, they will be put on an IV of a Narcan drip, and would make basically then obviously the Narcan will outlive whatever drugs are in their system. So that's so important. And on the very often when I teach this class, there's a lot of first responders in it. So I always say that, you know, as a first responder, you really have to force these people to go to the hospital, because I'm a firm believer that I can articulate in any court of law as why I forced someone to go to the hospital who just came out of an overdose. I mean, they were, you know, at the pearly gates. You administered Narcan, and now they're back with us. I don't think that they have the capability of making a decision whether they should go to the hospital or not. And you as a medical professional probably agree. So that's the way I look at it. But for those of you that aren't first responders and don't have that burden of forcing someone to go to the hospital, one of the biggest advantages that you could give the first responders that are responding to this event is advocate on their behalf. Don't ever be that person who says, no, he or she doesn't have to go to the hospital. No, we'll take care of it here. No, you know, they don't need to go to the hospital. We'll go to the doctor tomorrow. Don't do that. Be the person that says, you know what, why don't you go to the hospital? Get checked out. I'll jump in the ambulance with you. I'll get your paperwork together. You have to kind of encourage them to do this because it's that important. Obviously, we've seen people that didn't go and it turned deadly. So if there's anything that you take out of this class tonight, it is to please make sure that these people go to the hospital. Okay? Now, why do people overdose? We've kind of identified what they look like. We've administered the Narcan. We saved them. So why do they overdose? There's many reasons. Obviously, it's just the abundance of opioids in their system, which everybody kind of knows what opioids are. Heroin, painkillers, morphine, Oxycontin, things like that. So that's what Narcan works on, is opioids. It doesn't work on cocaine. It doesn't work on marijuana. It works on strictly opioids, okay? It's not. Yeah.
Prescription drugs. It's a prescription drugs.
Yeah, prescription drugs that have, you know, opioids in them. With that being said, like I started the class with, if someone is overdosing and it's not an opioid and you give them Narcan, it's not going to affect them negatively. So if you're not sure what it is and you're just looking to save this person, by all means, spray away. If it's not an opioid, it won't affect them. Okay? So why do people overdose? It's obviously the amount of drugs they've taken. It is, they could have a medical condition that they don't know about that's just been come upon them. They've kind of been taking some sort of opioid drugs for a while. They have a medical condition leads them to an overdose. There's many different reasons. One of the things that we've seen really affects a lot of people when it comes to opioid overdoses is their tolerance. And their tolerance could be for, the reason for the tolerance overdose could be for a couple different reasons. The first is someone was administered Narcan and realized, I was about to die, I am not going to do this anymore. And let's be honest, nobody in this room, especially, definitely not me, is perfect. We all have a bad day. We all get in arguments with our loved one, our girlfriend, boyfriend. We have bad days at work, fights with our bosses, financial problems, or just depressed. And we kind of go down that wrong road again. And you know what? You've been clean for 60 days, 90 days, 6 months, a year. You go back to your old routine and your body just can't handle it. You lead to an overdose. We've seen people that are incarcerated. I had one in my hometown within the last 4 months. Person gets released from jail at noon. On their way home, they stop and see an old friend, get their bad habits back. They go home, so they're released from jail at 12. They're on their way home, they stop. By 3 o'clock, they're dead. Because their body's just not used to, what they did 6 months, 9 months prior. We also seen, obviously everybody's read about it, it's been on the cover of Newsday, the introduction of fentanyl into the communities. It's potent, we're not sure what it's cut with, what it's made with, and it's bad stuff. And the way people's bodies react can turn deadly, and we've seen that. One of the things that I will say is that especially recently with the new police commissioner, Commissioner Ryder, this really is public enemy number one when it comes to opioids, and that's in all communities. I think you've read about it, you've seen it, and I'm not just saying this because I'm a cop, but the Nassau County Police Department, the local village police departments are really putting every resource possible into fighting this battle. And I think that they're doing a great job. It's not a war that's going to be won overnight, but I think that it's something that they're putting the resources into. We're putting this in the hands of more people. I think people are realizing that they want to take their communities back from people who are destroying it with this stuff, and I think that it's really moving in the right direction. So I think that that's a plus side to all of this. Just to go over some of the legal aspects, is anybody here certified in CPR? Okay, so as certified in CPR, you start doing compressions and you break somebody's rib, you're covered by the Good Samaritan Law. Same thing with Narcan, okay? If something goes wrong, which we haven't really heard of anything going wrong, but you do administer, God forbid, the person's too far into their overdose and they don't make it, you are covered under the Good Samaritan Law, so you don't have something to be concerned about. Where to store this stuff? Very often the women like to keep it in their bags, their purses, which is great. For guys, it's a little tougher. Many people keep it in their glove box in their car, which is great. Just be careful with the temperatures. When it gets frigid cold out, the manufacturer says that it's normal temperatures, so I like to rate it between 25 and 85. Any lower than that, any higher than that, you should take it out of your glove box, keep it inside for the time being, just to make sure it's safe. Expiration date. Everybody here who has a Narcan kit will expire in October of 2019. If January or February of 2020 comes and you come across someone that's overdosed, it's going to work. All right, we all know why people put expiration dates on things, to sell more of it. So if you have it and it's 6 months expired, probably even 7, 8 months expired, it will still work. It might not be as potent and strong, but it will work. If you're one of those people who mark it on your calendar in October 1st of 2019, you are waiting for a new Narcan kit, you can call myself, call the senior councilwoman. We will drop it off to you. We will, whatever we have to do, we'll get it to you. One of the other things that I like to really get across is I do this, like I said, 3 or 4 nights a week because I think it matters. I think that if out of 17 or 1,800 people that have gotten these kits from me, if one person uses it and saves a life, it was worth the time and the effort. So with that being said, if any of you ever need more, if any of you have your own issue, a family member, a loved one, a neighbor, I'm not here to judge. I'm not here to ask questions. I'm not here to point a finger. If you guys need this stuff, just call. Call the senior councilwoman's office, call my office, and I will get it out to you. If not that day, the very next day. And I mean that. This isn't, I mean it. The Surgeon General of the United States put out a public health announcement probably less than a month ago, urging every American and every person that lives in the United States to carry Narcan. That's the first public health message they put out in over a decade. Not really sure what they were doing for the last 10 years, but with that being said, obviously this stuff's important. But with the amount of this stuff that's out on the street and everybody has it, it's also bringing new problems. And I mentioned the police department before, and I have conversations with the commissioner regularly about this stuff. And one of the things that we've seen recently is kids hosting parties with opioids. And really the invite to the party is go into your medicine cabinet, grab a bottle of pills, and bring it to the party. When you walk in the door, there's a bowl, you pour it in there, throw the bottle out. Everyone sits at a table, go around the table taking the pills until someone overdoses. And there will be 1 or 2 people at the party designated to be the Narcan person. It's scary. It's not really the party that I wanted to go to when I was younger, but it's scary. So in response to that, the county legislature, everybody knows what the social host law is in Nassau County. Basically, it was if someone's in your home underage drinking, something happens, you're responsible for everything bad that happened. So now they are expanding that to opioids. So if someone in your home or in your backyard has a party while you're away, your kids, your nephews, your grandkids, whoever it is, someone overdoses, they host one of these pill parties, it's on you. So it's something to keep in mind. It's important. It's important to have this stuff around. Obviously it works, it makes a difference. So that's really important. Does anybody have any questions on the actual administration of the Narcan?
This box will contain 2 administrations?
Correct.
That's it?
There's a total of 8 milligrams in there. Once you use that, like I mentioned, if you need more, just call us and we'll get you more. One of the things I also want to touch base on, and I only say this because I've heard it in other classes, I've done classes and people come to me a couple months later and they come back and they say, you know, I went to your class, I came across someone in a bus stop on the beach. I really thought they were overdosing. I knew they were overdosing, but I didn't want to waste my Narcan.
That's the purpose of it.
Yeah, first of all, that's the purpose of it. Second of all, I have boxes of this stuff. And I mean this. What I said before, I'm not looking to judge anyone. I'm not looking to ask questions. If you use it on someone and it's a mistake, if you use it on someone and it works, listen, if you go home tonight and you're like, you know what, I don't really understand what that guy was saying or how it's going to feel when I administer this, you go home tonight, you push the button and waste one, you call me tomorrow, we'll get you another one. You already pushed the button? Yeah, all right. See, there you go.
So we all have Narcan.
Okay, so we'll get you another one. But that's what I mean. If you need more of this, if you have an issue, we'll get it to you. All right? I have someone who I've been dealing with for the last 6 or 7 months who has a serious issue at home. Their loved one has a serious problem. Do I think that they're handling it the right way? No, but probably 3 months ago, they called me on my cell phone and they said, you know, if you could drop off 6 kits to me, I could really use them. So when someone calls you for help like that, you know that they're really in dire straits. Dropped off the 6 kits, and I happened to speak to this person 2 days later, and they used all 6 of them. Okay? Now, do I agree with the way that's being handled? No, because the person should go to the hospital. Because there's going to get to a point where you're going to run out to get the mail, and this person's not going to be there when you get back. So that's not the way to handle it. But I tell you that because, again, I don't mean to repeat myself, but I really want to get this to sink in. We're not here to judge, not here to ask questions. If this is something that you need, if you're one of those people who calls me and says, I need 6 of these kits, we'll get them to you. Okay, I hope you're not like, you know, selling Narcan somewhere. You know, if you need it, we will bring it to you, and I mean that. If you have questions, if you guys have any organizations, local organizations, your churches, anywhere that want to do a class like this, let the senior councilwoman know, and we'll set it up and be there, and we'll make it happen, and we'll make sure everybody gets kits. It goes a long way. People like to know what it is that they're doing with these kits, and I think it's important. They obviously save lives, okay? So my hope is that nobody in this room ever has to use it, but if you do, at least you know how, you have it, and you can really, you know, save a life. The last thing I want to get into is just briefly the child poisoning with the opioids. So, like I said, we've seen an uptick of children being poisoned, most of the time unintentionally. But there's also a concern because of teenagers and, you know, of everything that goes on, of securing our medicine cabinets. So if you go into any of the local drugstores now, CVS, Rite Aid, Duane Reade, if you go to the pharmaceutical, the pharmacy, they actually sell bags to lock up your painkillers in. And you could keep, I know nobody wants to live like that, but it's unfortunate because it's not only our kids. Now you have all these parties going on, your kid has a friend over to play, or next thing you know, they're going through your medicine cabinet to take stuff to a party. So one of the things that we suggest is if you have painkillers, lock them up. Maybe the days of leaving them on the kitchen counter to take them every morning is probably over. One of the things we also suggest is if you are going to leave them out, maybe in a magic marker, keep track of how many pills are in the bottle. So this way, if you see them decreasing a lot, you know that they're going somewhere. The next thing is monitor your children's internet use, even calls at the house. I mean, you can order pretty much any prescription you want from some pharmacy in Canada. All you have to do is throw a credit card in there, and it happens. I've shared stories with the police department of kids. You know, everybody, I think now, nobody really carries cash anymore. Everyone has a debit card. So when your kid, you know, you give him a debit card, the money comes out, you know what he's spending, the whole bit. We've seen kids that say, you know, I need notebooks, pens, and papers from Staples. They go to Staples, and instead of buying what they need for school, what is it that you see when you check out of all those stores like that? When you check out, there's that big gift card section. They buy 3 American Express gift cards for $50 a piece, and next thing you know, they're on some Canadian pharmacy online ordering whatever they want. So you got to be careful. I mean, I know none of us want to live like this, but it's unfortunately the world that we live in. Also, when it comes to the medications, the town of Hempstead very often hosts what we call Shed the Meds. You could bring your medicine there. Does the Hempstead Police Department, do they have a place where you could come? Does anybody know? They do, okay. So the Hempstead, if you go to the Hempstead Police Department, you could bring your medication there. They'll lock it up and get rid of it. We have, usually at our sanitation yards, we'll do Shed the Meds programs where you could, in conjunction with the police department, you bring your old medication and we get rid of it. If you don't want to wait for Shed the Meds, you can't get to the police station, you have painkillers in your house or drugs that you want to get rid of, there's a very easy way to do it at home. You can take a Ziploc bag, fill it halfway up with either kitty litter or soil from your garden or your flower pot, whatever the case may be. put the pills in there, fill it with like half with water, shake it up a little bit. It'll drag whatever's in the drugs out, and it'll become like this hard, mushy substance that you can just throw in the garbage. Keep it in the Ziploc bag, put it right in your garbage. When it gets to the landfill, it won't leak into the soil because whatever was in the drugs has already been dragged out by the kitty litter in the water. So that's a great way to do it. I think it's better than flushing them down the toilet, and it's better than just throwing the pills in the garbage can because unfortunately you never know who's digging through your garbage. So that's the ways that we like to point out to kind of keep the house safe. Also keep a list of medications. I know many of us do that anyway, especially those older in years. You like to keep a list of medications, so if you have to go to the hospital. But it's also a great thing to keep a list because if someone's in your home, does get into a medicine cabinet, does overdose, at least you're able to give EMS a list of the medications that were there, and we can understand what it is and why that they overdosed. So I know I tried to make this as quick as possible because it's beautiful out. So is there any questions? I think the biggest thing is make sure they go to the hospital. Second is if you need more of this, please call us. There's no questions asked. And third, obviously, the opioid epidemic in the town of Hempstead, in Nassau County, it's not specific to any one community, okay? It's regardless of race, regardless of age, regardless of your religion, your age, your economic background. I mean, we've seen star athletes in some of the wealthiest communities deal with this. We've seen, people in the poorest of communities deal with this. So it affects everybody. And I think that that's one of the things that's really most important about this. Especially me, I'm a detective. You want to be that kind of person that looks across the street. You could look at someone, you know where they've been, where they're going, and what they're about to do. And with this stuff, it's very different, okay? And it's got to the point where many fire departments, some police departments, I know some hospitals are starting now. If someone comes in or they come upon someone that's in cardiac arrest, they don't know anything else about them, the first thing they do is give them Narcan. So that tells you something. That, even if they have no idea if they're overdosing or not, if they're in cardiac arrest, they give them Narcan because it's affecting so many people. It's affecting the wealthiest of stockbrokers in a mansion in Lawrence to anywhere else. So I mean, it's affecting anybody, everybody and anybody. So when you come across these people and you think that they may be overdosing and you have this, it's, take the chance. It can't hurt them. It's your opportunity to save a life. You should really, take it.
Could you speak a little bit more about the Good Samaritan Law? Just give us a little more detail about how it works.
Sure. Basically the Good Samaritan Law, to make it as basic as possible. Like I said, for those of you that are certified in CPR, one of the downfalls of administering CPR is when you're giving compressions, very often you can crack a rib. I guess way back when, way before my time, there was some sort of legal issue that someone was sued, and they came to the point where there's now a law that if you have the intent to help someone and you have the best interest of that person at hand, and you're using your training and your knowledge that you've either got today or that you've read about, but the key is that your intent was to really help this person, you are covered under the Good Samaritan Law. And like I said, up until today at almost 8 o'clock, I have never once heard of someone having a bad reaction, being allergic, or having some sort of nasty side effect to Narcan. Never seen it, never heard of it. I mean, you're a nurse, you've never heard from it either. I mean, if you find that on Google, let me know, but I don't, I've never ever heard of it.
Just wanted to share something with the audience. As a treatment provider, New York State has passed regulatory legislation.
We can't hear you.
Loud. New York State has passed regulations. It's the New York State Office of Substance Abuse and Alcoholism Services. And as a treatment provider, the regulations now require all treatment providers to have, number one, Narcan on the site, and have trained professionals. Not showing many people coming in an overdose state.
Right.
They're coming in for treatment,
Right.
but this is the new regulations. My question to you, since Red Cross typically sells packages in terms of Red Cross bags, gauzes and all those things, is there any plan to include Narcan in a traditional Red Cross bag?
Well, I'm not sure about Red Cross, but I will tell you what the town of Hempstead has been doing. So since we started this program, like I said, about 18 months ago, 17 or 1,800 kits. We've also trained town employees, and we've also, just so everyone knows, if you ever see a public safety car, that's a town of Hempstead public safety car, there's Narcan in them. Any building of ours, probably last year, we received a grant from St. Francis and Mercy Medical Center where we put in extra, I believe, 70 AEDs, which are the, if you have a heart attack, you put the paddles, in all of our buildings. So our parks, our beaches, our lifeguard shacks, our buildings, our receiver of taxes office, you name it, they're there. Sanitation department. So in every AED in the town of Hempstead, every public safety car, bay constables, every marina, in every AED, there's also Narcan. So if you're somewhere, if you're in a park, if you're by a town facility, you don't have your Narcan on you, you can unzip any AED and there will be Narcan in there. Go ahead.
No, finish your sentence, go ahead.
Yeah, so there'll be Narcan in there that you can use and it is up to date. With regards to the Red Cross and the kits that they give out, you know what, that's something that maybe the senior councilman and I could do is contact them and kind of recommend that they start doing that, because I think that is a good idea. I mean, it's sad, but just as we need Band-Aids, we now need Narcan. So.
Well, any other questions? If not, I really thank you very much.
My pleasure.
And it's wonderful to have